to be very principles based. Same thought process we are following in the rules. The second thing that we always followed was we wanted the entire process to be very consultative. And because of that consultative process, for example, when we were drafting the law, I think we had more than 35,000 inputs from various stakeholders, and we used all those inputs to finally draft our bill. Same process we are following now. The consultation process is in its final laps. Most of the inputs that we wanted have already been received, and we should now be in a position to do the final draft.
Right. In the last week, sir, there's also been this huge debate and discussion in the Indian startup ecosystem on the type of entrepreneurship that is coming out of India. You know, there is a view that India has done very well for itself. It's one of the biggest startup ecosystems in the world. But is there enough depth? Is there enough deep tech being built? Or are we stuck with gig workers, delivery apps, fancy cookies and ice creams? What is your view on this, sir?
I think in our economy and our country, there is a space for practically everything. I must share with you that some of these startups are really working on very good, very key, very difficult technologies. For example, there is a startup, I wouldn't take the names, which is working on developing a chip. It's basically software. It's a fabless company, and their chip will be used in mobile. There are other companies which are working on variety of different semiconductor as well as AI technologies. There are more than 100 startups in IIT Madras itself, which are deep tech startups. So I think there is a space for all. Ultimately, what does a startup or an entrepreneur try to do? They try to solve a problem. So solving a problem in every space is required. Every sector is required. So I think in our economy, there is a space for all.
तो जो लोग कहते हैं कि सरकार और क्या कर सकती है स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम को इंकरेज करने के लिए कि लोगों के इश्यूज हो रहे हैं, उस पे आपकी क्या प्रतिक्रिया रहेगी?
देखिए, सरकार ने अपनी तरफ से बहुत बड़ा एक रोल प्ले किया है. 10 साल पहले अगर आप देखते हैं तो स्टार्टअप्स कितने 300-400 ही थे. आज 1.5 लाख से ज्यादा है. सरकार ने एक पूरा एक एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट किया जिससे भारत एक थर्ड लार्जेस्ट स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम बना है. सभी का रोल होता है. कोई भी ताली एक हाथ से नहीं बजती है. सभी को अपनी अपनी तरफ से प्रयास करने पड़ते हैं. और मैं कहता हूं कि आज के स्टार्टअप्स में वो एनर्जी है, वो एक एंथुजियाज्म है, वो एक काम करने का जो जज्बा है वो है. एंड आई एम वेरी हैप्पी विद द वे आवर स्टार्टअप्स आर वर्किंग ऑन अ वैरायटी ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स दैट दे आर ट्राइंग टू सॉल्व.
Right. If I can slip in a question here about Elon Musk. You know, on the one hand, the government has sort of rolled out the red carpet with respect to Starlink. But on the other hand, we are also seeing a very fierce battle where Elon Musk's ex has sued the Indian government in court because of the Sahyog portal. As the nodal minister, where do you stand on this?
Listen, this is not the first time that social media platforms have filed cases or suits against government. It's a very common thing, and ultimately every company, whichever company, has to work within the framework of the constitution and the framework of the laws that are passed by the parliament.
Talking about social media, sir, do you think the scope of the broadcast bill needs to be widened to also look at influencers, content creators, considering what happened recently with the whole Ranveer Alabadia and Samay Raina episode?
See, end of the day, we must understand that we are all living in a society. We are all living in a particular cultural context. We are all having friends, neighbors, children. Everybody is connected with each other. So we must, as users of technology, whether we are content creators or we are consumers of technology, we should understand what is our responsibility, and we should try to be, I would say, as a citizen or as a user, we should try and see what my own boundaries should be. I should be able to define that and work within that. Making, let's say, if you are in your own living room, 4-5 persons, those jokes would be very different from a platform where you are basically broadcasting to the entire world what you want to say, then we must understand that we are living in a social context, and I would say that we should understand that as a social responsibility.
अश्विनी जी, आपकी सरकार ने मेक इन इंडिया पर बहुत जोर दिया है. इस वक्त काफी अस्थिरता का दौर है ग्लोबल मार्केट्स में और कई चीजों को लेकर काफी अनस्टेबिलिटी है, अनसर्टेनिटी है. चाइना से सप्लाई लाइंस शिफ्ट करने की जो बात है, इंडिया को चाइना प्लस वन स्ट्रेटजी, इंडिया उस आपके हिसाब से हाउ वेल प्लेस्ड इज इंडिया टू बेनिफिट फ्रॉम द करंट सिचुएशन और विद द शिफ्टिंग ऑफ सप्लाई लाइन फ्रॉम चाइना टू इंडिया?
आप अगर पिछले 10 वर्षों की जर्नी देखो तो यू गेट द आंसर. इन 10 वर्षों में इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हैज ग्रोन 5 times. इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स एक्सपोर्ट्स हैव ग्रोन 6 times. 5 गुना यानी 17% CAGR से ग्रो हुई है 10 साल में, डिस्पाइट द 2 कोविड ईयर्स. आई एम सेइंग एक्सपोर्ट्स 20% प्लस CAGR ग्रोथ हुई है, एंड इट्स इंक्रीजिंग एट द सेम पेस और एट अ फास्टर पेस. अभी रिसेंटली वी अनाउंस द इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स कंपोनेंट स्कीम. इससे पहले हार्डवेयर, मोबाइल फोन, and the ecosystem is deepening so well. What gives more satisfaction is that many of the manufacturers are now setting up their design houses. There is one manufacturer who has set up a design team, and that design team has designed a laptop which they showed to me recently. Then I showed that laptop to one of the big IT companies ka CEO, and that CEO basically said that he didn't believe that this is made in India, this is made in Taiwan is what he said. And that is the kind of quality that our people are manufacturing and designing today. So that's a reality today, and that's going to grow. More than 400 companies are there which are there in the, I'm saying the major ones. There are many more smaller MSME units which are there, which are part of the ecosystem. So combine our stable policies that our Prime Minister has shown us a clear vision, the availability of design talent, and our focused way of implementing that policy, we are bound to grow in the coming days.
Mr. Vaishnaw, you mentioned the scheme for electronic components. The Union Cabinet last week approved over about 22,000 crores of PLI for electronic manufacturing. Overall, as I understand it, across 14 sectors, about 1.6 lakh crore of investment will come in on through the PLI route. But how do you react to criticism by those like Raghuram Rajan, who argue that the PLI scheme essentially just subsidizes a whole bunch of foreign investors?
See, I always take any criticism which comes very constructively, but what I would like to share with you is every country which got into electronics manufacturing, every country, take any name, they all started the same process, whether it is South Korea, it's Vietnam, it's China, it's Japan in the early phases, after the Second World War. Most countries had a similar phase, and especially in the last 30-40 years, you start with manufacturing of the finished goods, then you go to the modules, then you go to the components, and we are exactly following that same trajectory. We started with finished goods, now we are into and we already do modules, now we are already in the component stage. The highest possible domestic value addition that any country has shown is in the range of 38% after 30, 40, 35 years of working in that sector. Within very small time span of 10, 11 years, we have already reached 20% plus. And we are going to double this in the coming 5 years. So it's a very systematic, methodical journey. And to the critics, I would like to point out, electronics manufacturing is today giving good, meaningful employment to 25 lakh people. And some of these employment, and a large number of this employment, is for young women coming from rural areas with very little education, but very good, strong determination to make a difference, to work in sophisticated technologies. I like to give one example where I visited one of the factories, one of the plants. The girl was from a village of Bihar, and she said that when she goes back to the village, गांव जब वापस जाती है, तो गांव के प्रधान से ज्यादा इज्जत उसको मिलती है, क्योंकि जब वो बताती है कि मैं मोबाइल फोन मैन्युफैक्चर करती हूं. It's a very touching human thing.
That's an amazing anecdote, Mr. Vaishnaw. I just wanted to also ask you about phone manufacturers, right? So some of the biggest phone manufacturers in India are Chinese makers like Oppo and Vivo, more than Apple in India sales. So would they be eligible for PLI? There have been reports that the government has encouraged these companies to enter into joint ventures with Indian companies. How is this going to work?
Listen, any country or any company which wants to come and work in India, they have full freedom to work, and companies generally prefer joint venture mode when they want to go up the learning curve at a faster pace.
Ashwini ji, the Katra Srinagar Vande Bharat will be inaugurated by the Prime Minister in next 9-10 days or so. How symbolic is this in the idea of India? And also on the Vande Bharat project overall, at the last count करीब 136 Vande Bharat चल चुकी हैं. ये नंबर कहाँ तक जाएगा?
नहीं, ऑलरेडी 118 या उससे ज्यादा सर्विसेज ऑलरेडी चल रही है. 36 कहाँ?
136 में कह रहा था.
हाँ, 136 अभी चल रही है, and manufacturing is continuously happening. So I think that's, and people like it. Some of the parameters Vande Bharat is actually better than some of the best trains in the country, as you are aware. Acceleration pay, noise level inside the train, the vibration levels. That's because the design has been done with lot of thought in it. देखिए, कश्मीर और जम्मू को, श्रीनगर को और जम्मू को जोड़ने का, ये रेल से जोड़ने का, ये एक बहुत बड़ा सपना है देश का. और इस सपने को प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने अपनी बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग संकल्प के साथ, दिस इज अ प्रोजेक्ट विच रिक्वायर्ड ट्रिमेंडस टेनेसिटी, ट्रिमेंडस डिजाइन वर्क, lots and lots of engineering inputs were there. It's a very difficult project, but ये प्रधानमंत्री जी का पॉलिटिकल विल पावर है, पॉलिटिकल क्लैरिटी है, जिसके कारण ये प्रोजेक्ट कंप्लीट हो पाया.
अश्विनी जी, लेट मी आस्क यू अबाउट सेफ्टी, क्योंकि जब जहां तक कवच सिस्टम की बात है, इसके बारे में कई बात होती है. जब इसका पहला टेस्ट हुआ था तो आप खुद बैठे थे उस इंजन में रेलवे बोर्ड के ऑफिशियल्स के साथ लास्ट मिनट तक. यू सैट देयर योरसेल्फ. When do we expect the kavach system to be implemented across the country and us to go to zero accident rates?
बहुत significant progress हुई है compared to the period 10 years before. We have already reduced the number of incidents by almost 80%. That is the improvement which has happened in the last 10 years, and that improvement is now significantly moving forward in a big way. Kavach ka that particular thing was the time when it was in its preliminary design phase. That was version 3.2. Obviously, when people are looking at a new technology, and that to a technology on safety matters, लोगों को थोड़ा डाउट रहता है. इसीलिए मैंने कहा कि let me take that, make that as a personal example and take that risk and do that experiment, do that pilot myself. वो इसीलिए किया था, और उसका रिजल्ट भी अच्छा आया, बिकॉज दैट गेव लॉट ऑफ कॉन्फिडेंस टू द टीम्स विच वर वर्किंग ऑन द कवच प्रोजेक्ट. और अच्छी प्रोग्रेस है. अभी 10,000 लोगों पे लगाने का काम चल रहा है, अबाउट 15,000 किलोमीटर्स लगाने का काम चल रहा है. Many of the rich countries, they took about 20 years to cover their networks, and I think we should be able to do that in 6 years.
Ashwini ji, last question. We are running out of time. So, the Prime Minister speaks about his vision for Viksit Bharat in 2047. Let me ask you, as a subset of that, your vision and the Prime Minister's vision for Indian railways. 5 साल के बाद हिंदुस्तान की railways किस तरह की लगेगी?
रेलवेज में प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने इतना क्लियर फोकस रखा है, और जो इसकी रिक्वायरमेंट्स जितनी भी थी, विशेषकर फंडिंग के बारे में, सेफ्टी के बारे में, टेक्नोलॉजी लाने के बारे में, प्रोसेसेस को चेंज करने में, इसमें बहुत अच्छा एक मार्गदर्शन मिला है, बहुत अच्छा एक नेतृत्व मिला है, जिसके कारण वी आर ऑलरेडी इन अ वेरी रेलवे इज एक्चुअली ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग. इन द कमिंग 5 years, 3 major things will happen. First, from where we are today, safety will improve even more significantly. We have already reduced number of incidents by 80%. I think there will be a further reduction of 80% going forward. Second, the capacity is going to increase substantially. Is saal we became the second largest cargo carrying railway in the world. We left, now it's basically top 2 countries में हम आ गए already. And that will again further go up because railways is the most environment friendly mode of transportation. That will go further. Third, a lot of new technology trains, beginning with what Vande Bharat did, वंदे स्लीपर है, नमो भारत ट्रेन है, अमृत भारत ट्रेन है, बुलेट ट्रेन आ रही है, तो ये सब की सब एक टोटली एक नए तरीके की टेक्नोलॉजी के ट्रेन्स आएंगे. फोर्थ, द इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर विल इंप्रूव सब्सटैंशियली with the stations getting rebuilt. Today we are doing the world's largest station redevelopment program. 1,200 stations पे अभी as we speak काम चल रहा है और within a month's time frame, Honorable Prime Minister will be inaugurating 100 stations in one go. So उस तरह का काम चल रहा है.
If you can allow me 2 quick questions. How do you use AI every day? Is there an AI chatbot that you like? What kind of questions do you ask?
Bad question to ask. You ask OpenAI, how does Ashwini use it?
So let me ask you another question. I'm told, work a very long day. You have many, from 9 o'clock till 11:30, 12 at night. What is your view on what does your staff think about this idea of a 90-hour week?
I think you should ask the staff.
What do you think about it?
No, I think our Prime Minister has set a very good example before us. He works very hard, and when we have to take our country to a totally new level, there is no option but to, and it's a personal choice. Each one should make, each company, each organization should make their own choices. For me, I think there is no substitute to hard work.
So, Ashwini ji, coming back to railways, in terms of the AC class, the numbers show that the percentage of that in passenger revenues बहुत बढ़ गया है.
इसमें मैं बहुत clear आपको कहता हूँ. Throughout our history, it has been a 2/3, 1/3 history, as in the recent history of 20-25 years. 2/3, 1/3 का ratio रहता है
जी.
AC और non-AC का. That ratio has actually increased now. Now it is 70% non-AC coaches, 30% AC coaches. When you look at the number of seats which are available, it is 82% non-AC and 18% AC. देखो, विपक्ष वो जो एक नैरेटिव बनाने की कोशिश करता है, उसमें आप मत जाइए. आप look at the data, and I've placed this data before the parliament also.
In terms
रेलवे बहुत स्पष्ट है. रेलवे इस पूरे इनकम पिरामिड में very clearly low income, middle income. That is where our focus is. Low income or middle income families के लिए to provide a good, affordable, and we are the most affordable railway service in the entire world. Compared even to our neighbors Pakistan and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, we are at least half or sometimes 1/4 the price that they charge. So providing affordable and safe transport to our middle income families and to our low income families, that is what our priority is. Very clear, absolutely laser sharp focus.
Thanks very much, Mr. Vaishnaw. Thanks, and that brings us to the end of this session. A big hand for Mr. Ashwini Vaishnaw.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Vaishnaw.
Thank you so much, Sri Vaishnav. Thank you so much, Nalin and Chandra. Ladies and gentlemen, wasn't that an enriching session? Come on, after all of you must have traveled on the Vande Bharats. That man walking out is the person who is responsible for that, Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw, and that was an enriching session nonetheless. Now we have to look forward to more things that are coming up. So is the excitement palpable, or I'm here speaking to a quiet audience? What do we have here? Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, what are you expecting? Now that I'm not getting a response, I might just ask you before pinpointing at people and asking them to stand up and tell us what are they expecting as the next speaker is all set to come up on this stage. Any guesses here? Ladies and gentlemen, any guesses? All right, you already queued in. So I am here talking to a very smart audience, right? So what are the questions that you look forward to asking the Union Minister once he's here? Can we have someone answer that? Any particular question that you have in mind? about tariffs, of course. That's an important question after the reciprocal tariffs that were imposed on India particularly, because we have to look at our country. What is the response that India is looking at? And he is the right person to answer that question. And whether or not India is going to be cushioning that impact, because there are greater amount of tariffs that have been imposed on countries like China, and there are retaliatory measures that have been slapped by China. So that's something that every Indian, I believe, is looking forward to. And that's why we got the gentleman there in the nice suit say that point blank about tariffs. Any other question that you have in mind that you'd like to ask the Union Minister? Anything that comes to your mind? Okay. Can we have a mic there in the audience so that we are able to hear the gentleman there?
Mic 9.
Okay, so we have actually a very curious panel, and we'd like everyone to get involved as the Union Minister comes on stage. So the wait is over. Ladies and gentlemen, let's now talk about building, about creating jobs, about relationships among countries. Because our next speaker is a distinguished personality who has been meticulously running through each and every detail with a fine-tooth comb. His personal rapport with trade ministers from various countries have helped bolster the cause of India's stakeholders, helping iron out sticky, rough edges. He has expanded the area of the possible for India in a fast-changing global trade scenario. In another equally vital role, he has been shepherding Bharat's rise as one of the most vibrant startup capitals in the world, and also as a preferred global manufacturing hotspot, creating the right ecosystems for a new enterprise to flourish, unleashing strong jobs and economic multipliers. So please join me in welcoming Shri Piyush Goyal, Honorable Union Minister for Commerce and Industry. He will be in conversation with Palki Sharma. This is a session that is called Reshaping Destinies, Preparing for a Glorious Tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, huge round of applause for Shri Piyush Goyal. All yours, Palki.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are calling this session Reshaping Destinies, Preparing for a Glorious Tomorrow. A lot of people say your destiny is in your hand, but increasingly it looks tough. It depends on a lot of factors that you cannot control, like which side of the bed did Donald Trump get up from, how fast is climate change coming for us, how soon are the wars in Europe and West Asia ending. So there's a fair bit of uncertainty, and the question is, how will India navigate this? To get some answers, we have with us a very special guest, Union Commerce Minister, Shri Piyush Goyal ji. Piyush ji, good evening. Welcome to Rising Bharat. It's Wednesday. Trump tariffs have kicked in. Markets are volatile. Recession fears loom. What is India's strategy, sir?
Thank you, Palki. I think we've all seen the way Prime Minister Modi has deftly managed the entire situation. He was very cognizant of the impending possibilities. He was first off the block in building back his old friendship and relationship with President Trump. They both jointly declared that the US and India are trusted partners, and we will work towards a bilateral trade agreement by fall of 2025 to ensure that our relationship, our friendship, and our ongoing partnership, not only in trade, but in so many areas, geopolitical, defense, we have a very strategic relationship with the US. And I think it's only got reinforced since President Trump has come in. I think our strategy is very clear. We are engaged with the US. Incidentally, we are right up front in the queue because we started early. Prime Minister Modi had the foresight to recognize the crisis, and as is his wont, we have seen it in history over the last 11 years, every crisis has been converted into an opportunity for India.
We hope this one is true. And you've been at the forefront of the conversations and you've engaged with the Americans and your counterparts in Washington, D.C. What have they told you? What is their primary concern? Is it the trade surplus or is it the high tariffs? What do they want to fix?
I think we must recognize that this problem that the US is facing is not particularly directed towards India. The whole issue is about fair trade. And that's something India has been very vocal about for the last 10 years. I recently shared with an audience that we have to go to the root of the issue. The genesis of this problem emanates from the entry of China into the WTO about 30 years ago, when they approached the WTO and then they were admitted as a full-time member with all the privileges of most favored nation status, which means, in common words, that we cannot have differential tariffs for different nations. And therefore, whatever is the tariff one country imposes on country A has to be the same from country A to Z, unless we have a bilateral trade agreement or a free trade agreement. Now, I think we have suffered over the years tremendously. I don't know what agreement Congress party signed with the Communist Party of China during the UPA government. But post that, we saw the trade deficit with China grow by leaps and bounds. And India and Indian manufacturers, Indian industry, Indian trade suffered massively. Similarly, the US has suffered massive trade deficits because of the non-market economy that is China, because of their predatory pricing or unfair trade practices. And I think the United States is trying to reset the rules of the game. And in some sense, it's a good omen for India because it opens up huge opportunities. I've just come in, Palki, to your program straight from an interaction with all the sectoral export promotion councils. And I must tell you, save and except one or two, everybody is very excited. They see good potential going forward. They are supporting our engagement with the US, and together they and us will convert this into a great business opportunity.
Right, fair point. And I did see that comment about China's unfair economic rise earlier. And by that logic, Trump is taking the fight to China. But in the last decade then, our trade deficit with China has crossed $100 billion. So what are we doing to fix the imbalance?
Incidentally, the exponential growth that happened in the UPA time was about 25x. So a small trade deficit from $1 billion, $1.5 billion increased to almost $35 odd billion. Now, once you have weakened Indian industry, once you have killed, for example, our KSM and the important ingredients that go into making our pharma industry the pharmacy of the world, we become dependent on China for these materials, for many items. And then it takes a long time to get all of that back reshored into India. We have been working through projects like the Product Linked Incentive Scheme, where 1,97,000 crores has been given to different sectors. Our Semicon project, where the semiconductor industry and its ecosystem is getting 75,000 crores. We have recently announced that we'll come out with a scheme for the toys and the footwear sector. 2 days back, the cabinet decision was announced, I think probably on Friday last week, 3 days back, that we are going to offer 22,000 crores for the electronics component manufacturers to support them to manufacture high quality inputs in India. So it's a continuous process to promote manufacturing, to get industry in India to replace a lot of goods which have become a part of our supply chains, and wherever we see dumping or predatory pricing from products coming in from China, the government acts proactively. We have the Director General of Trade Remedies acting on any request that sector's industry puts up to us. We have the Industry Ministry working with the different sectors to protect any irrational pricing. So it's an ongoing effort, and our growth of the deficit during our 10 years compared to the 25x plus that grew in the 10 years of UPA is possibly only 3x or so.
Right. I'll come to the China point in a bit, and I know there's a political reset as well. But coming back to the Trump tariffs, I'm sure you had some calculation before the tariffs were announced. Was 26% closer to your best case scenario or worst case scenario?
I think the tariffs have been determined based on a formula, which is the trade deficit that the US has with a particular country divided by the total imports into the US from that country.
What do you make of that formula, though? You're a chartered accountant yourself.
I would not like to comment on a formula that's used by the United States. Basis that formula, they've come up with different tariffs for different countries. We believe that India was not one of those countries which really needed to have tariffs on them, because we were already in engagement for a bilateral trade deal. But I think the US has not differentiated. For every country, they've come out with a number. But we are in constant engagement, and I think we'll be working with them to take off these additional tariffs in the days to come.
And India has a better deal than some of our other players in the region.
And we are much faster off the block compared to the others.
But I think the strategy at the moment focuses on the trade deal that we're working towards. If for some reason it does not happen by the end of this year, what is the plan B, or is plan B to make plan A work?
Well, I think this is another area where I'd like to quote from your past experience. Look at COVID. The challenges were many. Solutions were experimented with very often. If you recall, the oxygen was a big crisis. We had only 900 metric tons of medical oxygen being produced a day. We needed 10 times that amount. But Prime Minister Modi, through deft handling of the entire ecosystem that could produce oxygen, actually achieved not only the production of medical oxygen grow to 10 or 11,000 tons a day, but the bigger problem of logistics of moving this large quantity was also resolved. We had to send empty containers, ISO containers, by Air Force planes to save time, and move the finished or filled up containers through railway. And we did that literally on real-time overnight basis. Like that, I can recount 50 examples during COVID. There's always plan A, plan B, plan C. But we succeed in whatever we take up. We will succeed here. Look at the Ukraine-Russia war. Many people criticize Prime Minister Modi that why are you not taking sides one way or the other. But look at the situation today. The world is recognizing and respecting Prime Minister Modi's astute handling of the war between Ukraine and Russia.
It's very interesting.
We never took sides.
Yeah.
We balanced our relationship. We worked towards diplomacy and dialogue leading to peace. And the whole world realizes today that that was the right path. And the only way this crisis could be resolved. And I would add to that, there was the crisis of oil, oil imports, crude oil imports into the country. Now just imagine, Palki, and you understand economics a little bit. I see your Vantage program quite often. Friends, just try to imagine if India did not import the crude oil that we got from Russia, and we were standing in the international market with our requirement, and our requirement is not small. We import between 3 and 4 million barrels a day. 3 or 4 million barrels a day is our requirement. We don't have enough domestic oil. Now, if we were standing in the market to buy